How are you able to balance being a caregiver for Isay, a parent to 2 children, and a sole provider?
I have no idea. I just don't have any idea, you know, and I feel like I'm failing probably daily. You know, I wish I could say better things, but I want to be transparent.
Isay, tell me about yourself.
B.
B
B
O.
O
O
R.
R
R
N.
N
N
B.
born
A.
in,
I
right?
N in
New Mexico.
Yeah.
You're born in New Mexico.
Now, throughout the interview, I'm going to go back and forth between asking you questions
Yeah.
and asking your wife questions. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, right, yes.
Tell me about what happened to him.
Yeah, so I say he
9
Sorry.
you're okay. So he got sick in December of 2023. He was fevering, and he was like fevering for a couple of days. And we didn't know what was really wrong. And it was like a Wednesday he got sick. By Friday, I had to leave town, and he was so sick that his parents decided to stay the night with him here at the house. Saturday morning, his mom found him kind of laying on the floor and telling her, like, we need to go to the hospital. They took him to the hospital, and then they discharged him. They were like, you're really dehydrated. Then by Saturday night, I had come home from out of town, and we took him again to the hospital because he had gotten IV fluids and everything and wasn't able to use the restroom. So when we took him into the hospital, we were told that he had become septic from the flu, so flu B, and his body was just shutting down. So all of his organs and everything were shutting down. Long story short, they told us to wait in the waiting room while they did a sterile procedure, and Isay ended up having a cardiac arrest. So he arrested for about 10 minutes, which has caused him to have an anoxic brain injury from being out without oxygen for 10 minutes, which is not great for the brain to be without it. So
Isay, do you still understand everything that everybody says?
Yes.
What is it like to understand everything but having difficulty communicating?
M.
M
M
A.
A D mad
What do you want people to understand about your injury?
Hard.
Can you tell me about the symptoms of his brain injury? How does it impact him?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that impacts him is, physically speaking, is the myoclonus, right? So the myoclonus is like that uncontrollable shaking. It's kind of similar to like Parkinson's, for example, right? So like you want to get that spoon to your mouth, you just can't get it there. And so Isay has like myoclonus pretty much in every part of his body, including his eyes, you know, his vocal cords, his tongue, everything that, almost every muscle has that issue. And you know, like I said, there's days that are really good, and then there's days that are really tough. Getting him out of bed is tough. You know, showering him and brushing his teeth is really rough.
Yeah.
Isay, what was your career prior to the brain injury?
0
You got this.
E L R
Would you like some help?
Yeah.
Okay.
E C T R I C I A N
Do you want to press that so you can say it?
electrician
How long were you an electrician for?
No. No, you were an electrician for... No, I want to say almost 10 years. This year. 10 years this year. Mm-hmm. You had enough hours to get your master's.
Yeah.
So right before Isay's injury, Isay had his injury happened in December, and he was actively studying the electrical code in November. So he was like really close, almost there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, on an average day, what do you do?
Nothing.
What is that like?
Talk.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Tell me about how your lives have changed since the injury.
9,
Our lives have been turned upside down, you know. Isay was the sole provider, so and you know, he loved to work. He loved to work and come home and work. You know, he'd come home and then cut the grass, or like come home and like do something, tinker. He's also he went to school to be a mechanic for a little while too, so he loves working on cars. So he would like come home and tinker on his cars and you know, do something. I would always you'd like buy cars in auction. He was great at buying cars and then like selling them for like triple what he would buy them for. He was really good at that. But he just was really active. So I think that's, you know, obviously one of the hardest things for him is going from being as an active person as he was to pretty much not being able to do any of that. For me, it's been difficult because, you know, I was a homemaker, you know, and so we had our roles, you know, he did this and then I did that. And so when I say now that he has this injury, I'm all of these things, plus now I'm Isay's caregiver, right? Of course, still all the same things, but now I have to worry about the things that I never had to worry about because Isay took care of them. And yeah, I mean, that's just kind of our day-to-day, right? And we've been really lucky to have like both of our families' full support. But even with that, it's funny because part of the reason why I wanted to talk about our story was because I felt like nowhere I looked, I could find somebody that related to me, right? Like, because, you know, I feel like in a way I'm like stuck in this like in-between place where I'm like, you know, I'm grieving my husband and our life, but I'm still having to just deal with all of these things and in a way feel like really misunderstood by everybody. And again, our families have been amazing, but I just don't know if like people understand. I don't feel like people understand fully, like our lives are really just been turned upside down. You know, it's our and we've always been been really close. There's nothing that we would have rather do away from each other. You know, it was like everything that we did has always been together. And so like, yes, now we do have that opportunity to still do that, right? And I'm super grateful for all of these things. I don't want to come off like I'm ungrateful and, you know, but it's just been really hard. It's been really, really hard. I haven't posted a lot about Isay on Facebook, for example. Like I've posted things like, you know, this happened, but I don't really post a lot of Isay, like his, you know, physical, how he's doing, more because I don't feel like people will understand, you know, and I don't know if I have all of the time to answer one by one. This is what happened, or this is, you know, and a lot of times people are like, well, how is he, you know, and people expect him to like, because you hear a lot people have a cardiac arrest and are down for 30 minutes and then they're going to work tomorrow, or, you know, and they're just recovering. And sometimes that doesn't happen, you know? And when people are asking, well, how is he today? Or like, how is he progressing? And it's hard to explain it, you know? And so, I don't know, I'm not upset that people ask questions. because people are curious, but it's so little. It's like, it's not understood as well. Like if, he was in a car accident, people would be like, oh, okay, he hit his head. There's going to be like something happening from hitting your head, right? But this is a different type of brain injury, just lack of oxygen to the brain. And it's not anything that you can physically see unless you're here and looking at him and can understand.
If you could use this video as kind of a platform to explain to everybody in your personal life what happened, what is it that you want them to know and understand?
I just want them to understand that, like, sometimes progress isn't fast. I feel like when they ask me, I'm at a loss for words. So I catch myself saying, he's well, he's doing well, he's doing better, and I don't, and again, I don't want people to get the false impression that he's, why does that matter so much? Because I feel like, and again, I wanted to share, of course, Isay's story, but at the same time, I want to be a voice for people that are the people that are in that person's life, right? Because, like, I'm not done grieving. Like, I'm not done. Like, it's not an injury that happened and then we're done, we're moving on, right? Like, I'm still going through a hard time. Like, this is the house we lived in before Isay's injury. So, when the grass gets long in the back, it hurts me because he would never let that happen, you know? Sorry.
Okay.
So I need people to understand that because it's slower, it's gonna be moments where it still just really hurts, if that makes sense. That, for me, was the biggest reason why I wanted to talk about it. Because, people think a lot about people who have lost a loved one, and they're just like, wow, that just is awful. Like, you lost your loved one. Well, I feel like we did too, to a certain degree, to a certain extent. And I just, I feel guilty for feeling sad a year later, if that makes sense. And I don't want to feel guilty about feeling sad a year later. Like, things are still not normal and things are still not okay. And I want people to know that, like, I'm feeling this and you're not alone.
Do you hide it a lot from your friends and family?
Yeah, I think so. The people that are closest to me probably not understand me, but they probably see the grief the most. But I find myself isolating because I don't want to be that person that's always sad, that just brings the mood down because, and nobody has said, oh, you're making us uncomfortable because you're sad. But, again, and I feel like if I had lost Isay altogether, maybe it would have been more, I guess, justified because people would understand she lost him. So I just want people to understand that when you have a loved one that changes, grief is not just the death of a loved one. Grief can be a lot of things, right? And so I'm so happy and glad that Isay's here still, but I want people to be able to identify that I'm still allowed to be sad, and I don't know how long that's gonna last. And again, we love Isay so much. I love Isay more than anything. We often say, you're my heir. That's how we talk to each other. Like, you're my heir.
Yeah.
And then Isay will say, pinky promise, and then we'll pinky promise.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of my biggest thing.
Yeah.
Isay, she said that sometimes she will feel sad and then feel guilty for feeling sad. Do you want her to feel guilty?
No.
Is it okay for her to be sad sometimes?
Yes. Yes.
Do you two discuss these things?
Yes, we do. We do sometimes, but again, it's just another one of those things, like, I don't want to bring him down either. He's on this journey of healing, and I don't want him to be sad. I always say to him too, like, there's enough to be sad about. Like, we don't have to sit here and be sad. But then when I'm by myself, I just start to, get sad. And I try not to. Because, I just don't want to be sad all day. But again, it's just those small things. And it sounds silly, but it could be anything, like seeing his truck. Every time he'd come in the house, he'd look back at his truck and he'd be like, that's a nice truck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you Isay's primary caregiver?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you help him with?
So I help Isay with everything. I help him get out of bed. I help shower you.
Yeah.
I help with restroom. I
Yeah.
help feeding him, changing him,
Oh.
everything. Yeah, everything.
What is it like to go from husband and wife to husband and wife and caregiver in an instant?
Hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. But I say this to Isay all the time. The physical part is not hard for me. The physical part it's hard because I'm doing more physical, but it's not like taxing on me. That makes sense. For me, it's more of like the emotional side that has changed, that has made it so hard. Because like I said, me and Isay were we were just such a team. Like, I couldn't go out of town without Isay texting me every hour on the hour. Like, we were just like really closely knit. And going from being pretty much best friends, husband and wife best friends, and he still is my best friend, and I still love him so much. Yeah. But that dynamic has been, I think, so hard. And the emotional toll that this injury has taken on myself and on Isay, I think, has been the hardest thing, from going to just husband and wife to being husband, wife, and caregiver.
Tell me about your children and how this impacted them.
Mine.
Yes. So Isay has a son that doesn't live with us. He is having a hard time understanding, or not understanding, but being able to process his dad as he is now. Yeah, Matthew. He's over in those pictures. Yeah. So yes, it's been really hard, and all of them, and we have Louie and Nayeli. All of them have been great. They're all as helpful as can be, but again, Matthew is having a really hard time being here, right? Yeah. Because Matthew used to do a lot of really fun things with you, right?
Yeah.
You guys used to play soccer and football outside.
Yeah.
And they just would, just be silly every time Matthew would visit.
Right.
And it's hard for him because his dad doesn't have those abilities right now. And so it's hard. I think it's hard for him to process it right now. I don't want to speak too much on his emotions, because it's not something that I'm as familiar with, so I don't want to get it wrong. But with mine have had a little, I think, not an easier time, but they've had more time to adjust because they live here. That's been a hard one for Isay. Yeah. Because Matthew has voice that he's not super comfortable with it right now. He hasn't been able to process those emotions. Yeah. Yeah.
Just so the viewers clearly understand, you have 2 children prior to meeting Isay that live with you.
Yes.
And Matthew is your son from a previous relationship as well, who does not live with you.
Correct.
No.
Yes.
Does he constantly bring up Matthew?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really difficult subject for him. And that's another thing. I think before I never was in between Isay and his interpersonal relationships. It was Isay and then his son. It was Isay and his mom. It was Isay and his dad. It was Isay and his brother and his friends. And that was Isay. You know, I never was in between that. If Isay went to eat with his friends, like I have fun, go have a good time. But now it's, yeah, can you do this, or can you talk to this person, or can you talk to this person for me, which is fine, but it definitely it's different. It's different. Yeah. So I think, you know, going back to Isay's son Matthew, he always was able to call his son. He was always able to text him, or, you know, play video games with him, whatever it was.
Yes.
Even when he wasn't here. And so I think that communication has gotten hard, which I think has made it heavier on Isay, because he did have that really close bond with Matthew.
And I just want to say, in case Matthew does see this video, that it's perfectly okay that you're processing things in your own time.
Yeah.
You're awesome, you're a kid, that's okay. But also, it's important to talk about these things.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Him.
Yeah. You want to show a picture of Matthew?
The.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say to Matthew?
Hi.
Buddy. Yeah.
Hey.
I
I'm.
L
Oh.
V E space.
You.
I love you.
Love you.
Yeah.
Tell me about Louie.
Who can? D.
D
D.
C
D.
G
O.
O. You're saying good.
And.
X
O.
O.
And. Yeah.
What are you saying? I'm a son. Say I'm a son.
I think the biggest thing for my kids has been kind of like seeing me, you know, kind of go through the motions a little bit, but they've been big, you know. They're able to help me feed him when he needs to be fed. Ultimately, though, I do want to get them into therapy so that that way they have a safe place to just talk about their emotions and kind of what they're dealing with. Because I don't necessarily, just because they've been really great, I don't want to assume that they have nothing to say about it.
What is it like to have a dad like Isay?
If you,
Hard.
yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Like before, he always used to like do stuff with me, like play games with me, like play everything with me. But now he can barely do anything. I hope that soon, someday, like he can go better, like, to going back to his old self.
Do you two know what the future holds in regards to how much progress you will make? Or is there a lot of unknown and you're just kind of doing your best?
Yeah, so with an anoxic brain injury, typically what they say is that you will make the most progress. This is what they say, right? Like at the hospital, you'll make your most progress within a month, and then you're kind of gonna baseline, or you'll, you know, slowly make progress after that, and you'll baseline at like 6 months. We actually haven't seen that, and other stories also say differently. Again, this is just what they tell you, right, at the hospital. As far as I understand, the injury is permanent, and the deficits will most likely be permanent as well.
Isay, how do you feel when you sit beside Louie?
S
O.
O
L.
N. Always saying son again. He feels like I'm a son, like I take care of him.
Yeah.
He feels like proud. He said he feels proud.
Yeah.
And sometimes whenever we're going through hard times and he'd always ask for something, I always like tell him like
Movie.
wait, or
Yeah.
sometimes I could put on a movie for him or something, like,
Yeah.
to keep him waiting.
Another thing that's really hard is that because of his injury and the confusion, he can get kind of angry. And I feel like the brunt of that anger a little bit sometimes. And so I have started to kind of like put up a wall, because before I could be, what's the word? I could let my guard down with him because I trusted him with my emotions, right? And so now it's hard because he can't control those emotions sometimes. It's through no fault of his own, right? It's like, it sounds funny, but it's not intentional. It's like he just will get mad, and then he could say a mean thing to me, or he'll say like, I don't want to live here anymore, or whatever, you know? And so sometimes, out of protection for myself and to not feel pain, or like pain in my heart because of that, or what he's telling me, I'll just, you know, he's not that person that I would trust my emotions to, if that makes sense.
What is it like to see somebody you love's personality change after a brain injury?
Oh, it's excruciating. It's so hard. And the funny thing is, because there's not a lot of like videos, resources on anoxic brain injuries and their emotions, I go a lot to like videos of dementia patients. And that sounds kind of funny, but it feels like that sometimes, right? Like with a dementia patient, it's like it's not like they don't mean to not recognize you, or they don't mean to be a certain way. It's just, you know, something's happening in their brain. So similarly, and so I'm like, okay, you know, I can rationalize, okay, this is not him. He's not meaning to, you know, be angry or act this way. And so again, I'm not like mad at him, and I'm not like taking it personal or anything. At first I think it was a little harder for me, because I was like, whoa, like, what do you mean you don't love me anymore, or something, you know? But now I'm just like, oh, okay, like if you'll say it, I'm just like, okay, you know, it's okay.
I say, is it harder to regulate your emotions after the injury?
Yeah. Hard. Yeah.
Do you ever feel bad about it?
Yes.
Have you noticed that it's more difficult for Isay to control his emotions since the accident?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He has like sometimes cried, but he hasn't done anything else. But I help him with the emotions by like calming him down, like telling him to wait, and like be nice, and like be more like courage to do like these things for yourself.
Yeah.
Isay,
Yes.
do you know that you get more angry now?
Yes. Yes.
How do you feel after you get angry?
But.
You feel bad?
Yeah.
You feel bad at me,
Yeah.
for me?
Yeah.
He just made me feel like so like irreplaceable. Like I was his one person. He would like, if a building was on fire and there was 100 people in there, like he'd run in there and try to find me first, you know? And so going from that to like pretty much, you know, being angry at me a lot, it's like, it's been really hard, you know? And so that kind of all goes into like, wow, like, you know, not being able to really fully share a lot of things with him, because I don't want to be vulnerable, because I feel like that vulnerability is going to come back to hurt me afterwards, if that makes sense. And I feel bad too, because I know he cares so much. I know he cares and he loves me so much. It's just, again, it's just like
Anger.
it's just anger. Yeah, it's just anger. And that's another,
Fuck.
because you can't walk or talk or use your hands. He's angry. Yeah. I can understand how that can be really frustrating.
Is it hard to balance the fact that you love your husband and also the fact that caregiving for him can be stressful.
It's the most difficult thing.
Right.
I think it's such a game of tug-of-war every single day between loving him so incredibly and just being so overwhelmingly frustrated because he's different. I love him so much that I feel frustrated I feel guilty that I'm frustrated, you know, and I want him to know that that I'm here for him no matter what, but I'm also a human being that that has emotions too, that does get frustrated sometimes, that does get overwhelmed, that does get tired and all these different things, you know?
Are you sometimes hesitant to share those feelings with anybody?
Rather than hesitant, I've noticed lately that I've just been shutting down and no one will hear from me because I just don't want to be that person that's like, how are you doing today? Sad, you know, and I know my family loves me and I know everybody means well, but I just wonder how long am I gonna complain until they get tired of hearing me complain, you know? And so I try not to be like that, but that's why I want to speak it because I want others to know that they're not alone and that and maybe people that are having their loved ones go through something similar can understand that that you're grieving, you know, and it hasn't ended. It's been a year and it's not over, you know, and I don't want to be that person that's sad or all the time or going through something and just, you know, isolating, but it's just I don't know how else to process in this moment. Because sometimes I feel robotic, if that makes sense. I don't know if other caregivers can relate to me, but okay, Isay needs to get up. Now he needs to brush his teeth. Now he needs to use the restroom. Now he needs his medicine. Now he needs to eat. Now he needs to do this. And it's robotic a little bit. And I do it because I love him, but it's I am also a person, you know? And again, my family they don't say nothing about that, but it's just I don't know, maybe I always tell people this online too. I'm check in on your loved ones. How are they doing? How are they feeling today?
Do you feel like caregivers are expected to caregive and not communicate to others that they are stressed?
People have this idea that kind of going back to the robotic thing, that you're just you just have to be this person, I don't know, just this patient person, and just, if I'm answering your question correctly, I don't know if I got that right, but that you should just kind of deal with it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's caused me to be I don't know, kind of just, okay, I'm just taking care of him, you know? And I think that's kind of part of what's caused me to shut down a little bit. For example, if he wants to talk about the same subject 20 times in a day, you know, I'm just expected to talk about the subject 20 times in a day, no matter what I got going on, you know, no matter, especially again, it's not I'm a stranger to him, you know. We would have arguments before, we've had debates before, we've had all the things that a relationship has. And so I think, I said, the hardest part has been transitioning from having just a regular conversation with someone where you're allowed to debate them on a subject to just being oh, okay, yeah, no, that's okay, you know. Or for example, he recently went to Mexico and he saw one of the most gorgeous states I've ever been to is Oregon. I love Oregon. Everything about Oregon I love. The pine trees, everything. And so he went to Mexico, and there's this place in Mexico that in his eyes is better than Oregon. Yeah. And he says it's beautiful, it's better than Oregon. And I'm you know, I feel that's kind of more of a silly conversation, but it's I can't sit there and go to town on the debate with him, right? Before I would have just been absolutely not, this is why. But now it's I have to just kind of accept it for what it is.
Do you have time for yourself anymore?
No.
No, I feel like I'm borrowed time too. Like if the other day I went to lunch with my friend. I asked his mom if she could come, which she's sweet. She's amazing. She came and she took care of him. And I went to lunch. She didn't tell me when I needed to be back. She didn't say anything to me, but I just felt rushed. I felt like I had to be back. Like I didn't want to. I knew maybe she had things to do, and I remember my friend was like,
And this is his mom.
"This is his mom."
Yeah.
And my friend was like, "Hey, like we ended up going to a couple stores after we had lunch, and I just felt like, I wanted to talk to my friend, but I was like, in my head, I was like, I need to get back to Isay. I need to get back to Isay. I need to get back to Isay. So even when I'm out, I just don't. It doesn't feel like I feel like I'm on borrowed time. It's not the same."
What is the most important thing you hope somebody learns while watching this video?
The most important thing that I hope somebody learns is I want people to get curious about anoxic brain injuries. I want people to, know the dangers of certain things, right? So I would have never thought that flu would have led to a brain injury. I just want people to know that there's more than just a traumatic brain injury. And if people know, knowledge is power, right? So if people know the dangers of something, they can be more cautious, right? So for me, that's one of the bigger things.
What's the difference between a traumatic brain injury and an anoxic brain injury?
So traumatic brain injury typically is when there has been a I don't know what a good word to use, but other than like hit your head against something in some way, right? Whereas anoxic, it's a lack of oxygen to the brain, right? In Isay's case, he cardiac arrested, no pulse, 10 minutes, no oxygen to the brain. They did CPR on him, but there's still loss of oxygen to the brain. So it's typically more like global. So it's like it hits a lot of different areas of the brain. Whereas traumatic brain injury, right? It's localized.
He did teach me how to restart the router and do all these technical stuff.
Yeah.
And now I do it for him, and I basically teach him.
What's that like to take some of the duties that he used to have and now you're responsible?
It feels like I'm like a dad for some reason.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk more about what they call, what is the word? It's called ambiguous grief, right? So it's grief that's not necessarily the result of somebody passing away. It could be from a lifestyle change, right? You could be grieving an old lifestyle. You could be grieving a breakup. You could be grieving pretty much something that just is different, right? And so I just want people to know that they're not alone. If they're going through something like that, their feelings are valid, and it's okay to take your time, and it's okay to be sad.